Okay, so then we can start. Okay, so hello and a warm welcome here from Frankfurt to those of us who joined us here on the spot, and to those of you who are joining us on YouTube from wherever you are. We're really happy to have you here tonight. Approximately 1 year ago, we had a similar event at the Brussels Press Club, and we also discussed the root causes of this conflict in Ethiopia. But at the time, we were also hoping for solutions, and we were discussing how reconciliation would be possible. And in the meantime, some hope seemed to pop up. There was a ceasefire announced, but it didn't last very long, and it seems like violence, unfortunately, has really increased over the summer. The Norwegian peace expert Ujikil Tronvoll said that now no peaceful transition is possible anymore. Is that really so? And what are the reasons behind this increased violence, especially for the Amharic people who are suffering a lot? We have reports about massacres. What are the reasons behind this? And why is it that the international community pays little attention to all that? These and other questions we want to discuss tonight with our distinguished panel here. And I hope we will really have a difficult but fruitful debate organized by the Initiative Against Impunity in Ethiopia. My name is Monika Högen, and I'm honored to lead you through this session. But before we start the presentations, we will have a small video that brings us all on the same page, please. Well, Tamaro Basho, you're representing the Initiative Against Impunity in Ethiopia. You're based in Germany, but you're closely following up, of course, what is happening in your home country. We saw those pictures, which are really horrible. And the movie already uses two words, genocide and fascism. And that's also what you accusing the Ethiopian government of, or whoever is behind the killings. We want to try to find out that these are strong words. We know that even the UN sometimes is really hesitating to call a conflict like a genocide. Why do you come to that conclusion? Would you maybe in your introduction also hop on that and tell us a little bit what is your what is your impression of the conflict, and especially why do you call it fascism and genocide?
Thank you very much, Monica. I think the question is very relevant. Indeed, it is important to discuss about it. Who is doing what? Who is doing this genocide? And genocide as such is a controversial word, I know. Fascism too, but it is happening in Ethiopia. And the perpetrators are the states responsible. Until recently, we never said, we never pronounced it that way. So there are indications. I mean, fascism is of course an ideology, but fascism, I did some research and I came to a sentence which is very, very indicative. Fascism is ultimately not a theory, it is a practice. And this practice is what I have it in German, so I have to look into that. And that practice of fascism is called violence, extreme violence, and that described it all. And the violence we have in Ethiopia is really, at the moment, you find it nowhere. So if there is a fascism, there should be genocide. And I will come later on and explain that. And that's why we say it is state-sponsored genocide. And the state as such must be fascistic. And that is in a very short explanation.
Mm-hmm. When you said that it's the state is behind this genocide, what is the interest of President Abiy to kill the people of his own country, especially Amharic people? So for an outsider, the Ethiopian conflict, I think, gets more and more difficult to understand. We hear a lot about Tigray, we hear a lot about Oromo, we know the Amharic people is there, but it seems to be also interconnected. And can you explain to us what is the interest of the state to destroy the Amharic? Why they're officially going against the Tigray Liberation Front?
I think we have been also asking this question because it was not that much clear for most of us what's happening really. And that's why I started just to research what does it mean at all, because we have been asked several times by media, and the question comes exactly, okay, you say it is a genocide, what is the state doing? And we had not a very good answer for that. So, I mean, as I said, genocide and the fascists, there are 4 characters, and they are doing it. It is about violence, and it is about territorial expansion. It is about persecution. It is about genocide. All the 4 main factors are existing in Ethiopia, and this has been done, with the leadership of Abiy Ahmed.
Mm-hmm. And just to have this a bit more clear, if I understand you well, are you saying who is committing those crimes? Who is committing these killings? Is it really governmental troops, or is it other troops, armed troops, whoever who are backed by the government? Or to have it a bit more clear for us who are not so familiar with what's going on?
We call it state-sponsored genocide. The paramilitary militias and so on, they are controlled by Abiy Ahmed, and that has been clearly noticed. And one cannot this genocide separate from the state. If the state was not fascistic, if the state was really wanted to really save the people, they could have done it. They don't even mention when 3,000 people, 3,000 Amharas are being killed. So there are so many indications that the military and the paramilitary, and particularly the regional forces in the Oromo region, they are the ones who are preparing the way so that the paramilitary, the OLF, comes and kills them. And Abiy Ahmed, he doesn't do anything because he's in command of that. That is very logical. If you are a state, if you are a prime minister, you are the one who commands all these things.
I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, we continue our first round with the next speaker, and then we go more into details. And I would like to turn to Measa Mohammed. You are in Addis, I presume, for the moment. Yes, welcome that we can have you here, at least virtually. So I'm very happy. You are a journalist and a human rights activist. You're founder of a media channel. And before we start with your presentation, one very personal thing I would like to mention about you, that you were affected yourself. You were arrested, if I'm not mistaken, December, I think, last year, November or December. And would you like to share just very briefly with us what happened and what you were accused of?
Yeah, thank you so much. As you said, I am Mada Mohammed. I live in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and just to call myself as a journalist, I'm not really comfortable with that. You can call me just as a person who is working in the media and who is trying to advocate some sort of human rights violations and something like that, to advocate on human rights issues. So whatever the case, as you see, in December, I was arrested by Ethiopian government. That was the first time after the change has come. And also before 1 month, I was arrested again for the second time. The reason behind it was that the ongoing war in Ethiopia was really escalated, and different issues were raised from different areas, and the government was trying to control every activities, every news, and every issues. So the thing that we've been doing in our media, as well as in my personal accounts or social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter, was not comfortable for them. I was trying to tell the truth for the people. What was the purpose of the war? What's happening, especially on the Amhara people, especially living in around North Wello and also Gondar. So I was trying to tell the truth. I was trying to show the human rights violations. Many people were displaced from their homes. Many people were in different IDPs, different areas. I can go throughly if we have time in the second round. So many women, many children were raped by the different group of people, especially from the TPLF soldiers. So we are trying to do this and to announce this for the people. That was not comfortable for the government, and I was arrested. And I was not charged, by the way. They didn't charge me for any reason. They just put me for more than 40 days in prison, and then they released me. And again, for the second round, actually, they have a problem with the Amhara regional state as a whole. They started to call the final groups to stop acting against the government. And so those medias, those journalists who've been trying to give coverage for this, we were arrested. Not only me, more than 19 journalists were arrested, activists were arrested, and the Fano groups, Fano means the youth people were helping the government during the war with the TPLF. Those youths were also arrested, and in mass arrest, I can call it in mass arrest. Even the government itself already announced it, more than 5,000 Fanos was arrested by the government, and but the fact was more than 20,000 were arrested by the government. Even they were killed in front of their parents, in front of their children. They were killed. So we were arrested for more than a month, and still there are journalists arrested. We were released, but like journalist Tamasgen Desalegn, Thaddeus Tantu, and other political leaders also are still in the arrest.
Just one short question. Obviously, you're released now. Are you still facing any threats, or is it now will you continue? You can continue your work, or how is it?
Well, I can continue my work, but that does not mean I'm not under threat. But even before I was arrested, I was under threat. I knew that there will be such kind of consequences from the government, from its character and from what they have been doing and telling for us. I can know that any day they can arrest me again, but I couldn't stop because just in Ethiopia, let me tell you one thing, in Ethiopia, arresting is a kind of luxury, by the way, for us, because people are dying in every single day with no reason, with no issue. People are dying in every single day with a lot of numbers. So arresting cannot be, a threat for us.
So from what I understand, you would totally agree with what Tamaru said, that you would also say that it's fascism and it's a genocide, or how would you describe what is going on, and how do you describe it in your reports?
Well, the Amhara people are trapped between genocide and war aggression. I can conclude it like that. There is a genocide. On the other hand, there is a war aggression. The people who are living on the so-called the Amhara regional state are in continuous war. It's called the North War, actually, but the war is between the TPLF and the Amhara people again. Actually, it continues with the federal government, but the direct victims of this war are the Amhara people. That's the one situation. The other one that we have been discussing was about the genocide. We call it genocide because its very definition was genocide. Genocide is when people are killed just because of their identity or because who they are. Just for no reason, the Amhara people are killed in different Oromia regional states and or not only in Oromia regional state, but also in Benshangul regional state, just because the mission, the target of this killing is just cleansing the Amhara people from that specific area. They have a historical background, they have a historical rhetoric in order to kill and to clean those people. They give two options. The first option, leave our places. You are a minority, you're not belong to this area. So if you're not living, we're going to clean you. By the way, for your information, if you remember in 1985, the world has donated a lot of $1 million for the Great Famine in Ethiopia. I think all of you may remember this. Those people who have been saved by the world from that Great Famine are the people who are under the threat of genocide. They moved, due to that Great Famine, they moved to different areas like Welega and also some other places like in Benshangul. Those people are called as settlers, and they consider them the one who is a minority. So what they are trying to do is just cleansing them from that area. This is it has its own background, historical rhetoric. They have a historical rhetoric that those people are who came from different areas and then they settled, but they're not belong to that area. So they are trying to cleanse. Why we are calling this one as a state-sponsored genocide? Because the government, the current government especially, we can see that doesn't take any kind of prevention and doesn't take any kind of legal issue, legal charges, or they didn't bring the killers, those who were doing this genocide, those who were doing this ethnic cleansing to the court. They have never do that. And even we have, for the recent explanation or the recent report from Human Rights Watch, if you saw it, it says the people are calling for help before 2 or 3 days. People who were killed, they killed 1,500 people in a single day within 8 hours, only with 8 hours. Before that, they have been calling the government, they have been calling for different medias and for different people who can do, or who they think they can do something for them. But they didn't do, the government didn't protect them. What have been done is the government came after all things happened, after all people were killed, and when the killers leave the area, the government came up to that point. So we've been saying, even they didn't condemn this, even they didn't give a single word, a single explanation about what's happening in Wellega, about what's happening in Benshangul, about what's happening in Samin Shwa, by the same people, with the same rhetoric, with the same situation. So what we're saying is it is a state-sponsored genocide. If not, let's see what the government is doing to protect it or to do something even after it happens. They're not calling the international people, and they are not doing anything. So how can we say that the government doesn't know this? How can we say that there is no the hand of the government on these all issues?
Okay, Mersa, thank you for this really strong statement. I think we would, for the first round, leave it like that, what you said. And I would like to travel a little bit back from this first round from Addis here to Frankfurt. And on my right-hand side, I would like to say hello to Lily David. Hello, nice to have you here. You are from the Stop Amhara Genocide Group, and it's an association that started in Switzerland. You're also board member of a media group in Ethiopia. You're currently based in The Hague. And you joined us here on the spot, which is really good, despite some train issues we all have today. So it's nice you came here. Now we heard already a lot about genocide, and also Tamara already addressed it about fascism. You also want to talk about ethnofascist structures that you think are for the moment are determining Ethiopia. These are all strong words, as I said before, and also to you, the question would be, how do you come to that conclusion and to these severe accusations? Do you have some concrete examples? Mersa was talking about some massacres, some concrete things. So maybe you could share with us why you come to that conclusion as well.
Okay, thank you. First thing, the media the media is based in the US, not in Ethiopia, but that's
okay,
fine.
Sorry.
And so that everybody knows that, and it's clear for the audience. Secondly, the topic I have is that ethno-fascist state structure in Ethiopia, and it would focus a little bit on the Walqait and Raya as a case for this topic, to highlight really in a manner that it can maybe
so you will give us an example, concrete case.
Probably,
yes,
yeah.
Would love
So
to.
in a sense, the Ethiopian states are, within Ethiopia, we have regional states based on ethnicity. So we can call them ethnic federalist regions, which have come to existence in 1991 after TPLF took power. I mean, this has been repeated many times. So basically what it means is that especially the major ethnic groups in Ethiopia, such as the Amhara and Oromos and the others in Ethiopia. So everybody has a homeland, let's say, a homeland which says, okay, and even these regions have also their own constitution. And depending on the will of the regional governments, so they have given rights or denied rights for the inhabitants of that certain region. And that has never come to existence. These regions never came to existence democratically. That's imposed. And it has never considered the demography, the ethno-linguistic demography. And I think it's also done, and certainly it's done to disadvantage Amharas mainly. And this is a fascist thought to disadvantage a certain group in Ethiopia with the perception and also a rhetoric to say that the Amharas have been privileged and are dominant, so we have to now disadvantage them and we have to crush them. And those are the words that actually have been uttered by big leaders of, for example, TPLF. And these are the rhetorics of every liberation front in Ethiopia.
So now we talk a lot about the ongoing war, which started more or less in November last year.
Yeah, 2020.
2020, so already 2 years ago. So now we're back into war, and we hear a lot about Tigray and that the government is fighting the Tigray Liberation People's Front. Now you're saying that those crimes against the Amharic people are committed by the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front and other armed bodies and is backed up by the government. How does that go together? That's very difficult to understand for outsiders.
So yeah, what happened is that after Abiy Ahmed came to power by outcasting, let's say, TPLF, gradually using the bureaucracy of Ethiopia, they have pushed out TPLF from the coalition, which was the Ethiopian People's Democratic Front, EPRDF, and EPRDF was mainly led by TPLF, very dominantly, and that has controlled the state, the economy, and also the politics and the military as well. So after that's the economics question and also some freedom questions. And then after TPLF is kicked out of the coalition, they were allies, actually, they were previous allies. And now the Oromos are the dominant group. And then the splinter from EPRDF is now the Prosperity Party, which Abiy Ahmed himself came up with, and then imposed it, and then says, oh, all the regions have now prosperity. So we have an Amhara Prosperity Party, we have a Oromo Prosperity Party, and not so successful for the Tigrayans, because now that's the power struggle that we have now. And that's when this power struggle led to war. And that war has been started and actually announced on Facebook. And then what happened is that the Abiy Ahmed hasn't fought the war decisively and then retreated, and then made the war actually come to the Amhara region. So now the Amhara region is the battlefield, and also Afar.
And from what I understand, what you also told me before, when we prepared to talk a little bit, you said that it's also very significant that the attacks against Amhara citizens already started before the war we're all talking about, and also outside the actual war zones.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, so we have had the Amhara region, I mean, that's the home base basically, but Amharas live actually all over Ethiopia, especially in Addis. Majority of the population of Addis are Amharas, even though the governments, successive governments want to deny that and to suppress that census. Elsewhere also, like regions like Oromia, Amharas are a big number, millions and millions. And the Benishangul Gumuz region, which has come to existence by taking historical Amhara lands and then crafted another region which outcasted totally the Amhara population of the region and make some minorities the owner of that region. So all these Amharas elsewhere, their own home-based states are vulnerable, are not represented politically. They are not allowed to have their own special zones or special self-governing structures. And they're actually also beyond that, they are also made defense by they strip their self-protecting rifles that they used to have because they are farmers. And every the existence of a person is actually taken. So your life is only on the mercy of someone and not protected by any law or any governmental structure or So that's why there were already mass killings and genocide killings happening in the Benishangul-Gumuz region continuously, and the same in Oromia region, different cities, not only now in Welaga, it's a lot frequent these days, but it has been happening also where different cities have been burned totally, and especially targeted Amharas by name. They have even list of people, and ground killings and burning and destruction of businesses, and immediately sometimes also actually annexation of their properties. That has been happening. So we have been advocating for that already before the war started, using the Amhara genocide hashtag or Stop Amhara genocide hashtag. And then now we know that it's also backed by the state. So we are now saying it's sponsored Amhara genocide that's ongoing in Ethiopia.
Okay. So you also have this accusation. Of course, I would like to bring in one of our online participants, Magen Ejigu. I probably didn't pronounce it totally right. We're happy to have you here. If I'm not mistaken, you are joining us from Sweden, I think. And
yeah, I'm from Sweden now.
Yeah, very nice to have you here. You present the Balderus Support Group. You are Europe representative of the Balderus Support Group, and the Balderus Party is one of the opposition parties. And you yourself, you're also known for your critical blogs that you were already writing, I think also already before the war. Now we talked already about what's going on in some regions. We had some concrete cases. We saw the pictures, and of course those pictures showing us very vulnerable people, farmers in remote areas and villages. And this is also, I think, the perception that the international community has that is going on in remote areas. But you say that Addis is or will be or could be the next site of genocide. Could you explain to us why you think that's and how this could happen? It's horrible to hear that.
Thank you, Monica. And can you hear me?
Yes, very loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to thank Frankfurt Press Club for preparing this platform to discuss about the ongoing genocide against Amhara people. Though my topic focuses on Addis Ababa, the capital city of Ethiopia, and I can represent there is a big concern that Addis Ababa will be the next stage for the ongoing genocide in Ethiopia. And there is a reason for that. The other participants have explained about the nature of the state, the government, how it is ethnofascist. Then, I mean, the thing is, like, if we look at the political concept at ethno-nationalism, is basically means like every structure, every function of the government is basically lies on ethnical lines. Then fascism, like, it basically means like, it's an absolute dictatorship where the people or the citizens of that state have no say. So if we combine these two simple political concepts, then we have ethno-fascist regime in Ethiopia. And a city like Addis Ababa, which is a metropolitan city. Addis is like, it's a big city. It's a melting pot. That means if you take Frankfurt or New York, for example, we have like different people residing in the city from different corners of the world with different ethnic background, but the city itself, through the urbanization process, is a melting pot and creates its own identity, like Frankfurt. Or if you meet someone from New York, they say, I'm from New York. So that gives Addis Ababa its own identity by itself.
But wouldn't that, sorry to interrupt you, but wouldn't that mean that the genocide is less likely? Because if you have such an international identity, normally people have less prejudices against each other, less hatred, because they're more familiar with living side to side. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I share your point. But the current regime, what they're trying to do is like changing, defying the concept of urbanization by itself. So they are trying to create Addis as a homogeneous society. They have clearly stated, even in a public media, that Addis belongs to Oromos and belongs to, owned by the Oromia region. So after the current regime took its power, they have tried to distribute illegal Addis Ababa identification cards for the Oromo people. They have tried to change the demography of Addis Ababa through resettling people from Oromia region. And they have these illegal political claims. So in the beginning, it was like Oromia region should have a special benefit from Addis Ababa because where Addis is located geographically. But now it is clear that the Abiy region, the Prosperity Party, and those who are in the opposition side from the Oromia politicians, they claim that Addis belongs to Oromos and Oromia region. They are clear with that. Then there is like massive land grabbing of in Addis Ababa. There is like illegal distribution of state-owned condominiums and apartments, and they are allocated to Oromos through different regions. So these are like, I should say, illegal undemocratic political strategies whereby they want to defy this urbanization process and make Addis Ababa a homogeneous society only for Oromos. Mm-hmm. But that it doesn't end here. Maybe I can discuss it in detail in the second round. But recently, the government, the Oromia region president, which is his name is Shimallis Abdisa, and the mayor of Addis Ababa, her name is Adana Chababe, that comes from the Oromo Prosperity Party. They had a meeting and they decide like the demarcation, the geographical demarcation between Addis Ababa and Oromia regional state. So over that meeting, they have decided and they have taken a huge part of Addis Ababa to the Oromia region. So this is like the first step precedent. It means like now a huge part of Addis Ababa is already belongs to Oromia region, and this will give them the platform actually to commit the genocide against Addis Ababians. So they are defying the natural process of urbanization, and they are trying to change the metropolitan nature of Addis as a city and making it as a homogeneous society.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for this insight. We will indeed come back later. Also, that also goes back to the question, what is the overall interest behind all this? I think we should also discuss that in our second round. But first, I would like to also say hello to Dr. Fitsum Ashamele. Huh?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Not so easy. You're from the group Genocide Prevention Ethiopia. You are based in the US by profession. You're a lawyer, and actually, but you're joining us from France right now. And
yes.
And you say that well, it goes into the same direction that the other panelists already said. You also say that the Amharas are becoming stateless in their own country. So it means that you would also say it goes much what Lily already said, what the problem of the Amharic people goes much beyond the actual war that we hear about, because we are in the West, we only hear about Tigray and what's going on there. But you say that the Amhara, what do you think is the whole political interest behind that?
Well, thank you. So my organization was established 2 years ago formally, but we've been working on this issue more than 2 years now. The root cause of the current Ethiopian problem is the Ethiopian constitution, or the system that was set up in 1991. So the framers of the current constitution, the constitutional system, where they came together to somehow either wipe out or dwindle or destroy the Amharas or their political power. So it all started in 1991, and then they framed the Constitution in 1994 and divided this country into ethnic, quote unquote, ethnic federalism. So they set up regional states that intentionally not only defranchise, but also gave license for any kinds of genocidal activities. The kind of thing that you have seen or read back in the 1940s. If you remember the genocidal regime in Germany or other states had a legal background. The Weimar Constitution of the 1920s and the 1935-38 laws in the Eastern Europe that gave license for rulers to not only dehumanize, but also to make Jews stateless. So that's where the whole thing starts. So the killing, the other forms of genocidal acts did not start 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's been going on. It's like a continuing flow of activities for the last 30 years. Now it has been intensified and get the attention of the outside world. We're trying to get the attention, but in the past 30 years, this has been going on. So the whole thing is, I have heard you've been asking other panelists, what is the interest of Abiy? But Abiy came from this system. The interest of Abiy, as any political leader, is to stay in power. Today, he can stay in power by doing this thing, by killing. Hitler and other people stayed in power for a limited period of time because they could do it. They had the support, or either active support or support based on fear. So Abiy could stay in power as far as he's doing this. Whenever he could not, whenever the people revolt and act against him or his interests, even from his own ethnic groups, then either he would leave power or leave or stop doing it. So, but today, each constitution, the Ethiopian constitution and other constitution of the regional state, like Article 2 of the Benshangul state and the preamble and Article 8 of the Oromia state, give license to such acts. So, and people ask, oh, why not the government is helping these people? Because they could not. The system is done not to help. The system is done for them either to leave the area and move back whatever this Bantustan state that they set up, or they be killed. And especially in the past 2 years, what the Oromia region and the Benshangul region has done is similar what has has went on in this area in Europe back in between 1938, 39 to or even 38 to 45. So what they couldn't do with Amharas in Oromia and Benshangul region is to make Auschwitz as Birkenau type camps where they can burn them or make a soap of them because they don't have the technology. But all the other things, confiscation of properties, killing, denying of burial places, destroying burial places, and churches or mosque, and all of the genocidal acts have been committed. Now,
Sorry.
so this is being committed now.
Maybe you could unmute. Yes.
And this is done because their constitution, so the Oromia constitution, the Benshangul constitution, and other constitution like the preamble of the Harare constitution allows such acts. Now, you might say, well, is this allowed by the Ethiopian constitution? I don't know. I'm not sure it's not allowed. I'm not sure it's not allowed. But the Abiy government knows, and other regional leaders know that their constitution and their acts are at least incompatible or against the constitution of the Ethiopian constitution 1994. But there is no any constitutional court like in modern day Europe that can interpret this constitution or act saying that, hey, what this governor does or what this constitution is against the constitution of the Ethiopian government or the Ethiopian state. So in short, the Amharas are stateless because of the constitutional system that gave rise, or that gave rise to other state constitution, which is the fruit of the poisonous tree. And because of this, governors, police officers, regional leaders or regional, appointees believe that hey, I'm licensed to do this, and I'm not going to help you. So the whole system is set up to defranchise and destroy the whole Ethiopia, in that the Amhara people. By the way,
so the fragmentation is the goal is to fragmentize Ethiopia.
Exactly. The goal is to balkanize Ethiopia, not to build Ethiopia or transfer Ethiopia to another democratic state. But the constitution is set up as if like we usually do this for people who are getting married of interest, or people who are like writing separation agreements, when either elderly people or young people get married, say, okay, can you prepare me a separation agreement so that if this marriage doesn't work, then I can take my own property, and then you go take your own and I take my own. So this constitution was set up to balkanize Ethiopia, to defragment Ethiopia, not to end with the intention, as I said, with the intention of not giving voice to Amhara people, because they, in 1991, the winning forces, TPLF and others, so that the Amharas, which call them Nefteñas as an epithet, are our enemies. And their constitution, the Ethiopian constitution, if you go back and read how they frame the constitution, how they debate the constitutional debate, you can see that, hey, we have this system for how many hundreds of years, and the Amharas were the perpetrators. So, and we're going to destroy that. So this is the root cause. This is the root cause, and it could not be solved the Ethiopian problem, the human rights problem could not be solved without changing this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for this insight. So before we continue to discuss amongst us, I would like to know whether here in the room, somebody, do you have some questions that you would like to directly address? Do you have any questions to the panelists, and anything you, not for the moment? I'm looking towards our technician. Can people who watching us on YouTube, can they also ask questions, or?
Any of the panelists explain the relation between Abiy and the Oromo situation, and he as Oromo, what kind of role is playing in all things? I think someone explained it, but it's not that much in details.
Okay, so yeah, the question is, why is Abiy, he as a Oromo, has a particular interest and role in that? I think it always goes back to the question, who's insisting on what is the interest? Because again, it doesn't make, from the first view, at first glance, let's say, it doesn't make much sense to an outsider that somebody is destroying his own country, more or less.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, yes, but it is not a normal circumstance. We have to deal with genocide and fascism. I come again to that point because
maybe also now, to answer to the question, to explain in particular what is the situation of Abiy as a Oromo, also to clarify.
Yeah, it doesn't play any role. He has this goal, and the primary goal is really to expand, to persecute, and to have a genocide, and they have their own Lebensraum, so to say. And that is it. And the constitution as such, that is not the goal. It is a means to just accelerate the genocide, because the constitution says, for example, the Oromo constitution says, Amharas and not Oromos are not at home. They don't have any right to vote, any right to be elected. So it has, a reason behind it. It is, just driving away the Amharas, and particularly the Amharas, because we should not forget 15 to 20 million Amharas are living in the Oromo region without any right. So that means it is in a second thought what I see, that Abiy is Oromo and doing for the Oromos. But of course, that is, every fascist is doing like that. But that is not the main goal for them.
Okay. So having listened to all what you said, for me, it's still the question. I mean, in the Western world, we mostly hear about the Tigray conflict, or the war is perceived as something going on in the north, like the government troops are fighting against the Tigray Liberation Front. And I'm still trying to, so is this just like it's a fake to cover what's going on, like with the Amharic people? So it's not the real conflict, or is it like the Amharic people have gotten between all the front lines? I still find that a bit confusing. So maybe we can, I don't know, whoever of you now, we have to just raise your hand, or Lily, you would like to say something?
Well, I can imagine, because the narration now and also the media coverage is about the war, which can be logical, but there are also other reasons why this has got a lot of attention. As TPLF was the leader of the country for 27 years, they have had a good tie with many different external bodies and government agencies. So it doesn't have to be exactly a certain government body or structure, but certain shadow side of a government of a certain country can be still using their power in order to have influence in the region. That can be why that has gotten a lot of attention. And of course, there's a real conflict ongoing. And as I told you, that is a power struggle, first and foremost, because once you have control of the federal government, you have the absolute power and then dictate anything. So without controlling the central government's power and the bureaucracy and then the finance structure and the military, you have nothing. So that's what TPLF lost, basically. So this is why the conflict is there. But the war on Tigray, the war is in the Amhara region, basically, and physically and geographically, the war is now being battled in the Amhara region, while TPLF actually also, the TPLF forces left the region and then were marching southwards. And then, so basically they are outside of the region with the law, with the human wave or whatever you call it, really lunatically gang raping, looting any part of government or any public infrastructure purposefully. When we account, that was the first round. Now we have the third round of the war still ongoing on the Amhara land. While the region has more than 11 million internally displaced people from everywhere. Mm-hmm. So Amharas have been displaced from Benishangul, from Oromia. Displaced people are not also welcome in Addis. And so they have nowhere to go. And there's actually also no support whatsoever from the international community. As you see, 11.6 million population is more than the Tigray regional population. Mm-hmm. Imagine that those are displaced people within the region, the residents of the region also, they are completely destroyed. Their livelihoods, their cities are shelled, and many psychological damage has happened. So the burden of this war is also mainly on the Amhara people and on the Amhara region. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the regional governments are absolute loyalties towards the federal government, and they are not really elected actually also by the people. So they have never been the voice of the people, to say so. Their loyalties to Abiy. So everything what has to happen and what has to improve in the Amhara region is not reported.
Yeah. So maybe at this point, Measa, would you like to also comment on this, especially also why do you think we, at least in the international media, we only see like as a Tigray Ethiopian government conflict, and we don't see all the other things going on in between?
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, as an outsider, it's the right question to be raised. You know what? The thing that Fuso was trying to explain is the beginning of all issues in Ethiopia. Especially about the constitution. The constitution is the first thing. It is planned by the TPLF. There is no difference between TPLF and prosperity regarding about Amhara people, regarding about understanding the Ethiopia, understanding Ethiopia. They have the same looking of Amhara people. They understand that the Amharas are the first enemies. The Amharas are those who have to be considered as a second citizen. They have no any difference in this case. Their difference that led them to the war is the issue of power. What I understand is that the issue of power, the issue of controlling the central government or the federal government was the main reason to have the war between the TPLF and the federal government. The thing happened here. Where is the geographical area that the war, or the battlefield, we can call it the battlefield, is in Amhara regional state. Those that makes the people of Amhara the direct victim, the first victim, the people of Amhara. That makes it where the place take place, where the war take places. And also, as the TPLF said, and what I can agree and what I understand, the Tigray people are also the direct victim of this war. So what we can conclude from this is, of course, the TPLF is trying to explain that the Tigray people are just becoming siege. They are not getting the humanitarian services. So that leads them to the war. But what they are doing is just escalating the radius of the siege, or the radius of the people who are in need of in this humanitarian service. They controlled the different places of the northern Wollo, like Kobo, Wobie, and some other places. And then there is no communication around there. There is no any kind of humanitarian services. So the thing that we have to focus on here is about the international community. The international community understands the war is between the federal government and one kind of regional government. And the Amhara people are forgotten here. That's why we are asking here, neither the TPLF nor the Prosperity Party doesn't represent the Amhara people. Both of them, they have a serious agreement on fighting with Amhara people, displacing the Amhara people, cleansing the Amhara people. They don't have any difference. The difference is just regarding about their power. So we call upon this international community in order to be the voice for those voiceless people. At least the Tigray people are used as a hostage of the TPLF. They are using as a hostage. And then all of the time they speak about the humanitarian services, and the whole international community asks us to the federal government to give humanitarian services for the Tigray people, as if the Amhara people are under normal circumstance, under normal situation. But the thing is, the people in Wollo, the people in Gondar, the people in Lalibela are not getting the humanitarian services. They have no light, they have no water services. Even still in northern Wollo, there is no any bank service. Even the displaced people from Wollo, they're not allowed to enter to the capital city of Ethiopia because they are Amharas, just for this reason.
At this point, I would like to ask a question. I don't know who wants to answer that. From what I saw, what you also gave me as a background from the demonstrations that you recently did, so one of them in Nuremberg here in Germany, you were talking about that now the Amharic people are also creating like a self-defense group called the Fanos or something. Yes. Maybe could you just briefly explain? Tamara, would you like to explain? And would that be like make your people stronger, even though we do not want to have more people fighting against each other? But so what is?
Well, of course, we do not want to fight each other, but the circumstances force us, and that is Fanos, Amhara self-defense forces, we call them. Fanos is in Amharic. They are the one who saved something, just fighting for the Amharas, consequently. And so, in view of the fact that from two ethnofascists are being attacked, there should be a resistance within the victims. It is inevitable, as long as, because the Amharas must defend, and that is what FANO is doing. Mm-hmm. And it is, of course, in the foreign media and so on, they have been telling something which is not at all the reality, by saying that FANO raped, FANO was in Tigray, and so on and so on. That this is, it is not, there is no any proof of that. But on the contrary, it has been proved by Amnesty International and so on and so on. In the Amhara region, when the TPLF, the ethnofascist TPLF, invaded Amhara region, not only demolished most of the infrastructure, but thousands of women have been raped. And that is the difference. So the FANO, we expect that the FANO become stronger so that the Amhara could be defended.
Well, we have a problem here, of course. Each side, all the sides, the different sides are accusing each other of human rights violations, as you just said. But you also made it clear that this is not.
Well, the human rights violation written by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch was really very, very one-sided, not researched.
Okay.
And we couldn't find really a proof which we could say, look, we have that and that. They were talking about the telephoning from someone from Kenya to Sudan, speaking with the fighters of TPLF. And the TPLF, and these fighters, of course, say that refugees. And that cannot be. I mean, it should be really, you have to have some proof. And that was not a proof. And that is the difference.
And to add on that, I mean, these refugees, so-called Tigray refugees in Sudan are there. I mean, we have refugees from Tigray within the Amhara region in mass nowadays. We are receiving them. The Amhara region has received a lot of Tigrayans recently, while there is actually barely nothing for themselves. So these people, and sometimes this has some understandably some anger, because they said, yeah, they have to actually themselves have to resist TPLF and not flee, because the consequence that they're not fighting this ethnofascist group is actually having a big consequence on the Amhara people and on the Tigrayans themselves. So they are fleeing TPLF from Tigray now and staying in Amhara region. And those Tigrayans in Sudan, I mean, if they're real refugees, they wouldn't be, why would they be afraid? Because we are still having Tigrayans having to stay in the Amhara region at this moment. And actually what happened at the beginning of the war is that 5 days after the war broke out, the Samri group or some trained youth group from Tigray have actually massacred Amharas in Maikadra, and with brutally. So, and those youths, that they are the refugees most of the time. Of course, women also are afraid if something like that happens. You feel also there might be a consequence on me, so you also flee. But there is still a recurrent attack from Sudan on the Amhara region from that side. So that those are not really refugees; they are actually mercenary killer groups who flee Ethiopia and have been interviewed by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. And within that, I mean, we shouldn't go on into detail, but there is a big question about the neutrality of these two groups when they reported this actually last April, I think.
Yeah, so it's really very complex. I think we would like to go to Addis. Van Magen, you have also, you said you wanted to go a bit more into detail what is the situation, or could be the situation in Addis, and I think you have prepared a short presentation for us.
Yes, but I mean, I can talk about it just to save some time, but just to relate like some factors, because like from outsider point of view, you know, the conflict in Ethiopia, now we have like the war in Tigray. It's called even the war in Tigray, while the war is basically happening in Amhara region. So the media, the Western media first is about now the war in Tigray and stuff like that, but they don't really go through the underlying factors like the Amhara genocide or the conflicts between different ethnical groups. Just to relate to you, Monica, to other maybe like people from Europe, we are talking about ethnofascist region, but if we take like the fascist part and any extreme right-wing political movement in Europe, by their very nature, they have to have an enemy. Like the Nazi, they have to have this imaginary enemy. It could be like the Jews, it could be like the blacks, or the, you know, like the fascist movement in Italy. They have to create like an imaginary enemy just to advance their political motive. So even like in the current European political environment, we see like developments in the right wing, in the extreme right wing part, and they have to create like some sort of enemy, you know. whereby they can have like it's between us and them. Them is the enemy. So this kind of extreme political ideologies, they have been creating imaginary enemy. You could see it in Europe, from Europe history, and we could see it now, from the extreme, from these recent developments of extreme right-wing politicians. So with that same token, if you take TPLF, Tigrayan People Liberation Front, which has ruled Ethiopia for the last 27 years, and if you see like the Oromo Democratic Political Party, which is ruling Ethiopia now, they have one common enemy. They both are extreme groups, but they have one common enemy. That's like the Amhara people. So they have this false historical narration, and they have formed this imaginary enemy so that they could advance their political motive. So you could see like you could relate easily how things are in Ethiopia politically. So in Addis, like the most worrying point is like the demarcation that is going on now between Addis Ababa and geographically, Addis Ababa and the Oromia state. What they did is like the people of Addis Ababa, they don't have any political representation. It's just like the president of the Oromia region and the mayor of Addis Ababa, who is basically coming from the Oromia Prosperity Party, that decides on Addis Ababians. So the most important thing here to consider is like the citizens of Addis Ababa, they don't have any political representation. It is like the politicians from the Oromo Prosperity Party that decide, the huge part of Addis belongs to like Oromia region, and this creates like the platform, the precedent because like if you see Wallagga and the other parts of Ethiopia where the genocide has been committed, they have like this ground. Some the other participants explain that if we see like the genocide that has been going on in Wallagga, those people kill Amharas, force them to evict, and their reason is like the land belongs to Oromos, so you don't belong here. This is our land, and we have the right to this land because we are Oromos. So that the same reasoning is now coming to Addis through this illegal demarcation. I don't know if I make myself clear.
Yeah. Thank you. So you don't want to share any more pictures with us, or?
It was just a presentation, and I've said like the factors.
What you just said. Okay. Okay. Thank you. In the meantime, we can see here some people are also participating in the chat. I don't know. I've asked again. Can they ask questions? Well, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I have a question from one of the viewers on YouTube.
Please.
So the question is, where does this idea that Amharas have too much political power come from? So if anyone could answer that.
Who would like to?
Where this comes from? I mean, there are different routes, I think, where that came from. It could come from the outside. There were some books written by some, I think, fascist-affiliated travelers, and especially after Ethiopia defeated the first colonial invasion of Italy at the Battle of Adwa. A lot of global media actually tried to portray also Menelik as a white guy, and then of course it was a big backlash for Italy, and then also part of, their allies back then. for the scramble of Africa. I mean, already they had a foot in other parts of East Africa, the Horn of Africa. So that was the expansion. So there were also a lot of battle between the British, the Italians, and others, the French, and later on also the Belgians, but mainly the British, the French, and the Italians. So, I mean, that defeat defined also something for Africa. And Menelik, being an Amhara emperor, I mean, he mobilized the entire nation to go to the battle, and the battle was decided on one day. It was a one-day battle, and it was decisively won. And that probably, that was in the
backwards. Just till now,
127 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and that Italians said, oh, the reason why we have lost this battle is that first Ethiopia is back then perceived as a Christian nation, even though Ethiopia is also the followers of all the Abrahamic religions, the Judaism, Christianity, and ancient Islam is all have feet in Ethiopia and followers. But they said, oh, the one is that probably the Amharas and specific places even were mentioned later on for their defeat. And then they said the reason why we have lost was that because the Amharas and especially specific people from that certain place have been decisive to mobilize the people. So they were then actually earmarked also for and then these let's say liberation fronts have been given food in many Western countries via scholars and the rhetoric of we are marginalized and all this stuff and that. Has been actually the root cause for others to support this kind of liberation fronts elsewhere, and then believed in that, and then of course you have to have an enemy. Mm-hmm. And the rhetoric that Amharas, I mean, if you look at the history of Ethiopia, especially now, I mean, Tigray region as a region, Tigray province, was mainly actually always governed by Tigrayans throughout history. The Oromos are the latecomers into the Ethiopian state, or they call it Ethiopian empire, but they have migrated after Ethiopia had a severe war in the early 16th century, the first half of the 16th century. So, and this historical, motion, we can go back, say, oh, this is our land, or this is your land, or we are marginalized. Ethiopia was transitioning from really from very traditional church-focused or religion-focused scholar into modern. So we had Amharic, which was actually way before Menelik, a state language, has been used to educate the rest of Ethiopia, which
this is one thing that
they perceive that's imposed on us.
Yeah.
And that is, but what they are doing today doesn't, even though that's true, which is not, but if then you shouldn't, or you are not, this is not the means of rectifying things, to be honest. And this is only the false rhetoric to expand and own a land which, I mean, the Oromia region, to be honest, it has never existed in history. There was no location that has been an Oromo ancestral land within Ethiopia, with the current Ethiopia. There were so many other groups that are now actually assimilated with the Oromos. So there is already now also small news, but you don't hear it. But many different ethnicities are now having problem with this Oromo expansionist mentality. Yeah.
Can I also add something?
You can add to that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very good question. What's the root cause? But the answer could be complex as it is, as the problem it is. But of course the colonists and who want to dominate the Horn of Africa as a neo-colonists, they also have interest. But Ethiopia is a unique geographical position. So there are a lot of geopolitical interests to destabilize Ethiopia. So this has been going on for the last 50 years, and the student movement, which was intended to overthrow an empire, quote unquote, an empire, had players had planted the roots for what is going on today. And those leaders were the one which made the 1991 Constitution. I mean, the 1991 overthrow of the Der government and the Constitution. So the purpose of this groups which has geopolitical interests in that area is to destabilize, and if destabilize is not enough, or is not enough to have their interests respected in that area, is to balkanize. So then the ethnic card could be used by activists at that time, and even this time, and that's the and then who are this? I mean, Egypt has a big interest. The Ethiopian civil war is not, of course, it is for power grab. It is the two leaders, Abiy and Debretsion, the TPLF leaders. They have no difference how Ethiopia should continue to be governed by this constitution. They have no problem with the system. The only thing, as Maaza and others mentioned, is who is going to be in power. So, but this the TPLF and other groups that has been playing parts in the 50 years Ethiopian history, they have outside supporters. They have been supported by Egypt, by the petrodollar, at that time by Iraq, Syria, and other people. So today, the only thing we see today is genocide and war, but this players have outside supporters. The West also supported. So
a little bit, because I know you have a huge knowledge about this, but we have more questions now.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I just want to add this to clarify some part that I believe should be.
One small thing I forgot to mention on my answer is that Italy came actually the second time to invade Ethiopia, and they actually controlled Ethiopia for 5 years. But during that time, right before the Second World War, during that time, they have massacred Amhara priests, Amhara nobles. A lot of Amharas have been massacred, and actually also they dropped some bombs on the city of Addis Ababa back then. So they came and specifically killed Amharas, then the Italians, and actually were helped by the Oromos. They were also supporting this ambushing of Amharas together with this fascist Italy colonialists. So that's where it started also, again, specifically targeting Amharas.
Way back in history, so I hope this question was answered, but you said we have more questions. You have more questions.
May I comment, please, Monica?
Sorry?
May I comment to your question? You raised a very interesting question, and I would like to comment on that.
Who's talking for the moment? Could you just...
Yeah.
It's just happened.
But
the thing, my question is, Ms. Lily has mentioned about the historical background of the Oromo movement. But I heard also that Oromo is a new name. The former name is Dalla.
Sorry, just to go one step back. Why don't we want people to ask questions? Yeah, but you want obviously wanted to ask a question, so we should allow questions. I think that's the idea of a press conference. I'm sorry for this. Maybe it's also a technical issue, but I think that's exactly what we want to have, questions from the audience. That's why I wanted to, when the person was talking, I wanted to ask him to introduce himself, but we should allow people to ask questions.
Sorry, someone have raised his or her hands. So
okay.
Am I allowed, Monica?
Yes, please. Sorry, that was just a technical issue.
Okay. You raised a very interesting question. Why is the West media and the politicians ignoring the massacre of Amharas. I think the problem lies in that the constitution, that's one point, but there is another problem, and that is, I think, in my opinion, the Amharas are underdogs, have been underdogs for the last 40 years when it comes to the propaganda, which was emanated by the TPLF and OLF. Do you know that it's interesting to know that there is no organization in Ethiopia which is not an Amhara organization, which calls itself Amhara Liberation Front, whereas there are TPLF, Tigray Liberation Front, Eritrea Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Front. All ethnicities have their own liberation fronts, and their aim and goal was, from the very beginning, to destroy Ethiopian and Amhara. If you look at the TPLF in 1975, their program, they have written in their program that their enemy is Amharas. And if you go to the OLF program, their enemy is Amhara. So the Amharas have been sandwiched between TPLF, Tigray and Oromos. And that is the problem. And the Amharas have always been loyal to the Ethiopian state, and they have not started. They have not had any liberation front. Therefore, the liberation fronts of the Tigray and the Oromos and the others have been criticizing the Amharas to the West World. And the West World, I don't know why, because of its love to the liberation fronts in the 70s and 80s, they have been listening to the TPLF and the OLF and the EPLF. But the Amharas have not have such possibility to explain about themselves.
Yeah.
And that is one of the problems.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this intervention. I think you made this point a bit clearer to us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
My question is, she stated about the historical background, and we are always talking about Oromo. But this Oromo is a new name, which was before, as we know it, as we grew up in Ethiopia, as Ghana. But there is a big issue behind this change of name, because during the time of Muslim war in the 16th century, as you stated, and after that the central government was weakened, and there came the invasion of the Ghana. And during this invasion, they have massacred a lot of people in different regions of Ethiopia. So in the new context, they call themselves Oromo because the bad history, what they were covering, is they to the demolition. So this must be also understand what background they have. And that's the biggest thing. But if you say something about even this word, it's not a word that the Amharas were giving to them, or the Oromo themselves is given from another ethnic group. So they are always accusing the Amhara, this Gala word is coming from the Amhara language, but it's not true.
Okay.
And this should be clear to actually to the Western world also, even though they know. I assume the Western world would know that this they want to say we are now almost with Galas because of their bad history.
So, you want to add to that, or
No, but I have no.
Yeah, there's
something else? Yeah.
Yes.
But it goes with that question.
And it goes with the question you raised, and that was about the victims, about the Amharas. Why? And funny enough, I came across an article when I was just researching. This question was raised as in general terms, not for the Amharas, but the social scientists dealing with fascism and so on. So I saw it, but there wasn't any conclusive answer for that, but that was also one point. So if I may, I would, in this direction, I would like to add some points with respect to fascism and genocide, if you give me the chance. Yes, please. So, you know, we should understand that the Amhara genocide is not sporadic. It is not just happened yesterday. It has a long, long history. So now I will give you a short history. And to my mind, I divided.
But short, like
very short, very short.
Because when people start to go back into history, yeah.
No, yes, it is in history, but in a couple of sentences.
Okay.
You know, in 1975, the TPLF was founded. In 1976, they just published a manifesto. And in this manifesto, they say they will build Greater Tigray. Mm-hmm. Greater Tigray means expansion. Mm-hmm. And they already mentioned which area they want to have, 1976. Mm-hmm. And that was the northwest of Amhara, Walqait, Tagade, Humera, Raya, Kallamt. All this was their plan, 1976. And they managed to annex these areas in 1984. You know what they did? They did extremely brutally. They massacred the Amharas, about 500,000, and that was written by ex-fighter of the TPLF. 500,000 of Amharas had been chased away and massacred and thrown in underground prisons. And at the same time, almost the same amount of Tigrays were settled there. And this is the first part, the first genocide. Mm-hmm. And that means they have already planned 1976. Mm-hmm. And they just put it in practice in 1984, starting from 1984. Same is the case with the Oromos. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have an independent republic. And they were saying that, by the way, the OLF was founded in 1973. And in their program, mm-hmm. they say, we will like to have this, an independent Oromo republic. And they also knew which areas of the Amharas they would like to take. And they took it in 1991. Darra and so on. And there, the majorities are Amharas. Mm-hmm. But then, they don't have any right at all. So let us see it as a protracted activity, we took decades. And what is going on in Welaga is part of their plan, the Oromo plan in 1975. Mm-hmm. So this is the most important point, yeah. And that's why it has exactly what I said. The main character of a fascism is the 4 points, mm-hmm. and they are happening there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for this.
I just want to add one thing, but very critical here, because also in order to form this kind of states, you have to get rid of many people, because there was no homogeneous Oromia state ever in history, or even in Tigray. So for that, in Tigray, they managed to control the people, but the obstacle they would perceive is also the Amharas, because they are very patriotic, or so they have to first psychologically fight that. So they come up with this kind of narration, and then Now the physical extermination and denial and also even blaming the victims is what we are seeing now is happening. So the Amharas are also seen as a blockade of their state formation.
Yeah. So that goes back to this question. Yes, please, may I?
Yeah, I just want to make two things clear here. The first thing that you've been saying, everybody is going back to history because we're talking the history or we are reading the history, the genocide, the ongoing genocide in Ethiopia towards the Amhara people is because it has two bases, the historical base and the constitutional base. That's why we are mentioning and referring to the historical rhetoric that are telling to the Oromo people. I can tell you, it just been told for the Oromo children as a story that the Amhara peoples are the killers, the settlers were going to take your land and something like that. And when it comes to the TPLF, they put it as a program, as a constitution, as assigning the Amhara people as the enemy of the Tigray people, and they call upon the people against the Amhara people, the people of Tigray against the Amhara people, and they take the control of the central government. That's why we are raising the two things. You need to understand the two basic things. The other thing that you have been asking about Fano. Fano is just a name for the people of Amhara who are trying to defend themselves from their enemy. It is a heritage of the Amhara people. You cannot stop any Amhara from being a Fano. Everybody's Fano, by the way. Fano might be a teacher, Fano might be a journalist, Fano might be a farmer, whatever profession they have. When it comes to their enemies, they are trying to defend themselves and their village. By the way, Fano around from Gojam, around from Wello or Shawa, they're not moving to other places. They just protect themselves, their village, their relatives, so that they can have a defense for themselves. Even the government, the the Prosperity, they call upon the Fanos in order to defend them, not only themselves, in order to defend the central government when there was a serious war between the TPLF and the central government. So being Fano means it does not mean that it's a kind of a terrorist group or a rebelling group. It is just the people that call themselves as Fano in order to defend themselves from enemies. It's just an informal communication, an informal way of protecting themselves. So I can say that surely every Amhara people is Fano in order to defend themselves.
Thank you. I mean, now you mentioned history and that that I was questioning it. I understand it's good to know about all those history things which lead to the actual conflict. Nevertheless, now we heard so much who came first, who did this, who did that. But last time, as I said in the beginning, like about a year ago almost, we had this discussion in Brussels, and at the time we were thinking also of what is the future, what can be. Is there any solution possible? And it seems like now it's even more difficult to really have hope that a solution is possible. But do you think Ethiopian people could ever overcome this, what you call Balkanization and thinking in ethnic groups? And overcome this, but you also said, Mia, that you tell your children these stories, so you transmit this ethnic divide from generation to generation. Is there a hope that you as Ethiopians can overcome that? Because from my understanding from listening to you, I feel that's the crucial point. Otherwise it will be very difficult to come to any peaceful solution if you're still thinking in those, I'm Amhara, you are Oromo. Is there a chance to, under those difficult circumstances, is there a chance to ever overcome this? It's a question to all of you.
Okay, let me conclude my point this because it's getting late here. Let me say one thing about how to get the solution for this. The first thing we've been seeing. So the first thing that we have been raising is about the historical rhetorics that have been told. So we need to have, by the way, we need to have a serious national dialogue. We need to have a serious external investigation in Ethiopia, what's happening and what has happened previously. The genocides, actually the genocide towards the Amhara people it's an ongoing genocide. It started previously, starting almost 30 years ago. So it's continuous. So we need to have an external investigation in order to stop this. And also in order to maintain or to manage those historical rhetorics, we need to have a serious national dialogue. A dialogue that the government is, I know there is a kind of national dialogue that the government is calling it, but it's a kind of, joke for that one, because they're not really inclusive. There must be an inclusive national dialogue. There must be a serious amendment, even not only amendment, a serious change of this constitution. We've been saying this genocide and the other problems are from their beginning is the constitution and the historical rhetorics. So in order to improve, in order to have an agreement or to come up with agreements, we need to have a serious national dialogue as a national level. And also to manage those constitutional issues, the Amhara people who were not represented in this constitution, we always call upon for this constitutional amendment. So if there is kind of legal and extra constitutional activities, we can manage those problems. But what makes this one difficult, as you said, what makes this one to be horrible and we cannot manage it, how can we solve it? Because it has been working on children and then it's a constitutional. So everything in Ethiopia becomes horrible. It's just because the government doesn't have any interest to solve this problem. Not only the government, both TPLF and Prosperity Party, they don't want to solve this problem because they just consider themselves, they will stay in their power if there is, if they can only, show the image of Amhara as an enemy of their respective subject peoples so that they can stay in their power. But if we take a serious measure from the bottom of our hearts, we can manage those problems. There is no problem we cannot be managed in the world. But what it needs is a serious intention and interest. That is what I can say. Thank you.
Hopping up on that, I would like to ask Van den Magen, are there, like you said, Addis is a melting pot. At the same time, there's a risk that it will also become a site of the genocide. Are there currently, as you said, so many international, is an international spirit still? Are there any efforts to come to dialogues? Are there any groups in Addis who try to go into that direction we just mentioned to overcome these ethnic borders? Is there anything going on also on a citizen level to stop this horror from continuing?
Yeah, as an international...
sorry, you can answer, but I addressed this question to Van Magen.
No, I thought it was important. Just he can continue.
Okay. Continue, Moazza, then I will...
Talk first and then you continue. Okay, thank you. Yes, please go ahead, Van Magen.
Okay. Currently, I don't there is no genuine political dialogue that is going on in Addis, but there is an attempt by the government. I know that they have established a commission whereby this commission is responsible to have this dialogue, and I think there is also a budget which is already allocated to it. But the point, as Moazza mentioned it, is the way out, the only way out is a genuine political dialogue whereby all political actors, everyone who has a political interest, should come to the table and discuss. But that will not happen as long as this region has the power. So I think my suggestion is it may sound a bit extreme, but we need international boots on the ground and we need a very strong diplomatic pressure on the region that will force it, to create this platform. Otherwise, because like there are like problems that have been, we had a chance to have this political dialogue, for instance, when TPLF took power, I don't know, 30 years ago. But they didn't take the chance. They just want to advance their political view. And we are now in 2020, and we have like more problems. We have like a civil war, a genocide going on. And if we keep going like this, I think we will not have like an Ethiopia as a state as we know it. Already it's a failed state. So there has to be like an international pressure in terms of like peacekeeping, because for me that's the only solution that could stop the genocide now. Is like we need international peacekeeping mission on the ground. Then we need to have like also like those diplomatic measures. It could be like sanction and other measures that could actually force the regime to prepare a platform for a genuine political dialogue. But also as of now, there is no attempt in Addis or anywhere in Ethiopia that I know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because we are slightly coming more or less to the end. So I would also ask all of you to add to that what you think is now really necessary, what the international community would do. What is your strongest demand? So
I would, if I may start.
Yes.
I would suggest for the international investigation of the atrocities that are happening. Actually, the UN has mentioned the new chairperson assigned now by Guterres is Betty Moringi. And last June, there were thousands of Amharas massacred in Walaga. So that hit the ears and a little bit of the attention of the media, and that actually put them in a position to push for international investigation, also in Oromia region and other, because Amharas, at least speaking from the Amhara perspective, Oromia, Benishangul Gumuz and Northern Shawa, which is part of the Amhara region where TPLF is attacking, or the government-backed arms are attacking civilians in towns. So these places have to be investigated, also others. The UN was mentioning that, but now this war, another round of war started. Just when the UN wanted to go to that kind of path to do the investigation, independent investigation, they started this war. It feels like they just didn't want this, both parties, TPLF and Abiy Ahmed's regime, don't want this investigation to take place in Ethiopia, or maybe only focusing on the war and that. But of course, both have committed war crimes and genocide. So in that sense, they don't want that. We call upon the international community to investigate independently what's happening on the Amhara people so that it can be stopped. Otherwise, the killings will continue. Recently, some days ago, also, a week ago, also was also again another massacre. So we need to push first for the killings to stop, and that needs international pressure, any means, and UN has to push on that for all, and not only for Tigray, but for the Amharas.
Fitzum, what would be your main request? What do you demand from the international community right at this point to stop what's going on? What is the main thing that should be done?
Well, I don't want to only talk about the international community, but in short, I just want to divide it into two. The Ethiopians themselves also has to deal with their own problem, meaning the elites should understand that balkanization would not help, and they should understand that they are in that region, they are in the same boat, so they have to find a political solution as soon as possible. That's in the short term. In the long term, I think tolerance teaching, a professional army, and many more things are needed in addition to the amendment of the constitution that Maaza mentioned. I mentioned earlier. As to the international community, Ethiopian budget, about 50 to 60% is coming from aid and loan. So the major player, the EU, the US, and the UN has to play a big role, with the understanding that the Balkanized Ethiopia or the civil war-worn Ethiopia is not going to serve their best interests. So they need to do a lot of things. I disagree with the boots on the ground, but short of boots on the ground, a lot of things could be done. A lot of things could be done to at least to alleviate the situation. That the boots on the ground could come later. I don't agree right now, because this is what the TPLF wants. I don't agree now because not only because the TPLF wants it, but I think short of that, and things could be done. The sending of rapporteurs and some other, serious initiative and serious dealings, because the EU and the US is one-sided, thanks to the lobbying efforts of TPLF and its best, diplomats being abroad, and as mentioned before, having a lot of cozy relationship with the media. So, this EU and US politicians and the UN has to really see what's going on the ground. The thing that they have done in the past 2 years didn't work. Meaning, in the past 2 years, as mentioned before, this is a Tigray war. As mentioned before, and has been written by and been on the written and electronic media. It's a one-sided pro-TPLF stand has prevailed in the past in the past year. That has to change. Paradigm shift is needed from EU, US, and the UN, and then I think some kind of solution could be born out of this.
Thank you, Amhara. I think you agree with what was said, but can you also make your point clear, your demands?
Yes. To your question regarding whether it is possible for the ethnic groups to live together, I would say yes, it is possible. But there is, first and foremost, justice must prevail to the Amharas. That means in Walqait Tagade and all the occupied, now war being waged there, an international expert must go and really see to it what happened. And then the people who were responsible for that, they have to be accountable. Without accountability, no. You can't live together. And that was what happened in Rwanda. And this, as far as the international community is concerned, have been very critical because they were very superficial, short-sighted interests, and sometimes also ignorance. And they should really think about it. The position they have today is not even for their benefit. It is not. Things are changing in the world. And that should be the case. And in connection with that, all the responsible people, not only for Walqait Tagade and Raya, but also for Wallaga and for all the places, all the responsible must be accountable. And that is, otherwise there will not be any to live together, it will be impossible. That is not possible.
So reconciliation without accountability is not.
No,
possible.
it is not a reconciliation, and that is what I mean. Because we have to live. In order to live together, there must be a point, but this point must not be to the disadvantage of the victims. And the Amharas are the victims, and they need justice. Justice must prevail.
Who would be the actor, the main actor, to bring about this justice and accountability?
Well, under normal circumstances, the UN would have been that. And they should have come very, very early.
So do you still have trust in them that they will come?
Well, I hope they will come to their own interests. Now they are at least acting something somewhat better, and some things are being really told loudly, what the ethnofascist TPLF is doing and so on. But they have done a lot of mistakes. I mean, this war would have not taken place without the support of the UN, with lorries, and with, we have been listening to so many things which the World Organization is directly or indirectly is involved. But I mean, we have to tell that truth loudly so that they understand that we know, and they should think about it.
Maybe next time we can make someone come to one of our panels.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be
great.
Yeah.
Helping people in need is, I mean, that's a human thing to do, of course. But without condemning the perpetrator, which is TPLF, fiercely, that is a little bit of a joke. So that's actually basically a little bit disappointing from the international community. The resistance and then the hesitancy to not condemn TPLF fully. And that makes it very difficult to kind of have trust, because obviously everybody agrees TPLF is also responsible for the 27, not only TPLF, of course, all the coalition, but mainly now. And then in this war, they are the main stakeholders. And now also the government is trying to negotiate without having the proper Amhara representation. And that will also not bring any peace to the table. And that's also one thing we have to acknowledge here, is that ceasefire and then going to negotiation without the proper Amhara's representation, because I know the government doesn't represent Amhara's, I mean the federal government doesn't represent Amhara's, the prosperity party of the Amhara region, prosperity, doesn't represent the Amhara people. So there must be a group that represents the true Amhara voices to negotiate, if there is any negotiation or any talk anyway further. So that should be also noted.
Thank you. As I said, we come really to the end of our session now. I just would like to ask all of you if you would have to describe, but with one sentence, really one short sentence, your dream of where Ethiopia should be, like in 5 years or 10 years. What could you say, or one key word or one sentence? Who would like to start? But really just to round this up, not a long answer, short answer, if you have one. What should be, how would you describe that dream, or with a picture, what do you have in mind?
In the long run,
yeah,
truth will prevail, and truth with the Amharas.
Okay. Thank you. Fitsum, anything comes to your mind?
I would think as a country that respects its citizen, irrespective of ethnic origin.
And Manu?
Want to already say that?
Yeah. Whose turn is it now? Is it my turn, Ella?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years from now, if that was your question, I would like to see Ethiopia where every citizen, regardless of their ethnic background, should live peacefully, and whereby they have equal rights, and where we have a government which structure and function basically based on merit, not ethnic background. That's my wish.
Thank you. Is Measa still with us? No, she's okay. So then I think with these words, I will close this session. Hopefully we can meet each other again under better circumstances. And it's a difficult issue. Of course, we cannot solve it in 2 hours or even 3 hours, but I think we have come to a lot of interesting conclusions. And I just hope that the external world will better understand all the facets, the different aspects of the Ethiopian conflict, because I think that's the main misunderstanding from that we got here, especially in Europe and the West, as if it was only between the government and the Tigray people, and so it's very good to listen to you and see that, hopefully you can also make your voice heard. I really wish you good luck with that. Thanks for being with us, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to all of you who joined us and watched our video here. Please also spread the word that this is a conflict we should talk about. Yes. So thanks a lot.
So thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you.
You're very critical, yeah. But that was good. I mean,